All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing House Harkonnen. This is book number 2 in the trilogy that Brian Herbert and Kevin J Anderson wrote. It is the prequel trilogy to, well, let's just say this. It's one of the many prequel trilogies to Frank Herbert's Dune series that Brian Herbert and Kevin J Anderson have written. This was the first trilogy they wrote. Now, it started with House Atreides, which I have read and reviewed on this channel. So if you want to watch my review of this book, just type in my last name, House Atreides, into your YouTube search bar, and that video review will magically appear upon your screen. And then, of course, the third book in the trilogy is House Carino. All together, you know, they look really good together. The spines all match, so they look like a nice set of books on the shelf. And I collect all the Dune books. The original ones written by Frank Herbert, and then, of course, all the spin-offs by his son Brian Herbert and Kevin J Anderson. I've got the entire collection of them down there on my shelf. Anyway, let's talk about we kind of talked about the covers. They're all done by the cover artist Stephen Ewell. This book came out in 2000, so it's been out for a while. Now, Kevin J Anderson is a good friend of mine, and he signed all of my books. I've met Brian Herbert a few times also at book signings, but he hasn't signed any yet. Okay. Oh, by the way, speaking of Kevin J Anderson, I've got a great interview I did with Kevin J Anderson on the YouTube channel. Again, just type in my name, Durfee, and then interview with Kevin J Anderson. It's a really good interview. He talks about his work in Star Wars and his work in Dune and some of his other projects. Anyway, okay, so what is this book about? What is the trilogy about? Well, the trilogy is set about 35 years before the original Dune books. And it goes, from about 35 years before up until, young Paul Atreides is born. And we get to know a lot of the characters that are in the original Dune books and their backstories through this trilogy and a couple other trilogies that these guys have written. I enjoy this. A lot of people think it's blasphemous that anyone other than Frank Herbert is writing Dune books. I do not. I am of the opinion that these are really good books. I've enjoyed all of them. And I love being in the Dune universe. So there's that. Now, there is a difference in writing style. Kevin J Anderson and Brian Herbert's writing style is a little easier to get into. It's a little more approachable. It's a little more... I love Frank Herbert's writing style so much. It is he's so verbose. He's so poetic. His sentences are almost like gold, and the prose is just delicious to read. However, that kind of style turns a lot of people off. So a lot of people don't like Dune just because it's got kind of a difficult writing style to really engage with. These are much easier to engage with because the writing style is a little more straightforward. Kind of like Dune. The original Dune book is sort of like Lord of the Rings. And these, written by Brian Herbert, is a little bit like Brandon Sanderson, if that makes sense. A little bit easier to read, not so, okay. Let's just move on. Let's move on from that entirely. So, these books are prequels. Now, sort of the general theme of the book, and then we'll get into some specific characters. The general plot of the book is Shaddam sits upon the Golden Lion throne. Baron Harkonnen plots against the Atreides and the Sisterhood of the Bene Gesserit. And then Leto Atreides must choose between, friendship and duty, safety and destiny, So that's kind of the overall arcing theme of the things. This is what we're dealing with, and then we get into the nitty gritty details of each different characters. So the story opens with Pardot Kynes and his son Liet Kynes, who is 12 years old. Now we know that Kynes or a Keynes. I don't know how you pronounce any of these. I'm gonna butcher them all. Just forgive me. Kynes or Keynes is a major player in the original Dune book by Frank Herbert, and we get to see him as a youngster. They're doing scientific experiments and discoveries on Arrakis. They're studying the sandworms, how the sandworms attack, how the Fremen move around. They're studying sandstorms. In fact, we get a great scene later in this book of what damage a sandstorm can cause, not just to structures and rocks, but to people that are caught in it. I mean, it's almost like a horror novel at that point. But anyway, the opening scenes are very cinematic. One of the things about that Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson have captured, just like Frank Herbert captured, was the cinematic landscape. You know, as you read, they do a great job of describing what Dune is like, what the landscape is like, what these starships are like. Every planet that you visit in these books, they do a pretty good job of fleshing out what this looks like with some pretty good paragraphs of description and things like that. So I really enjoy that. We also get to follow around Gurney Halleck. Now, in the first book, House Atreides, that book focused a lot on the origins of Duncan Idaho and Leto Atreides and stuff like that. Now, this book kind of gives us Gurney Halleck as maybe one of the main characters in the story. Now, Gurney Halleck, we meet him. He's 21. He's on Giedi Prime, the Harkonnen homeworld. When we first meet him, he's really bemoaning the fact that he lives this bleak slave-like existence. Really, he sees no hope for himself or the future or his family. But of course, we don't yet. He doesn't yet know his grand fate that we all know of that happens in the Dune book. The plot point is his sister is kidnapped by some Harkonnen goons, and he has to kind of go rescue her. So that's kind of given him a mission. So we get to know Gurney Halleck through that mission. We get to know Liet Kynes through his study of Arrakis with his father. And then we get to know the Bene Gesserit a little bit more, especially Jessica. This has got a lot to do with Jessica, who is, Paul Atreides, Muad'Dib's mother. We get to meet her at 12 years old. She's a little bit of an orphan waif girl. She's being trained by the Bene Gesserit. And of course, they're very secretive. They don't want her to know her true secret identity. Of course, we know because we've read Dune and seen the movies, and so we know who she really is, but she doesn't know who she really is. We also get to see a lot of perspectives from Baron Harkonnen himself. Not only that, but we get to see the reasons why his body is in this devolved state of bloat. We get to kind of we know which is kind of interesting. I'm not going to tell you. It's hinted at different places, but he really kind of has to come to terms within himself of what he's done to create this monstrosity of a body that he now has to live in. We also get to meet little baby Fade Roatha, or whatever it is. Little baby Fade Roatha. He's a little toddler in this, and he's acting out, and people are trying to keep him corralled in, and he's just off doing his own little Fade Roatha. He's a little devil, even as a little toddler. Let's just say that. And so these books, and not only so those are kind of the characters we're dealing with in this, along with Leto Atreides and a few others. And we get and Duncan Idaho's in this also, but we get a lot of political intrigue. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is probably the most action-packed and political intrigue, convoluted plot, betrayal, double betrayal book of all the Dune books. It's really a lot of fun. I enjoyed House Atreides quite a bit and gave it a very high rating. And now I'm reading this, or I'm rereading it. This is the second time I've read it, and I'm rereading it, and because I read it way, way, way long time ago, and I absolutely enjoyed every moment of this book. So I mean, this is just an absolutely top-rate science fiction space opera. Dune book is just great. I mean, this is like literally like 9.5, 9.75 out of 10 for me. I absolutely enjoyed rereading this, and probably because I just saw Dune Part 2 a few days ago, and I was in the mood to get into a Dune book. So anyway, there you go.